Hello and welcome to the Ready to Bloom podcast with your host Holly Wharton. Ready to Bloom helps heart-centered women entrepreneurs to overcome their fears, blocks and limiting beliefs so they can be more successful in business. As a heart-centered business owner, you do amazing work. Holly's mission in life is to help you help more people. Help us help more women in business with a quick review of this podcast. It just takes a minute to leave one today over at iTunes. The more women who find out about this podcast, the more we can help women in business. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to the Ready to Bloom podcast, episode 84. This is your host, Holly Wharton. I'm here with today's special guest, Sarah Lloyd-Hughes from Ginger Public Speaking. Sarah is a popular speaker on confidence and inspiration, an award-winning social entrepreneur, founder of Ginger Training and Coaching, and author of How to Be Brilliant at Public Speaking. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you very much, Holly. Pleased to be here.
I'm so excited to have you today. So why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about your background and your business journey and how you got to where you are today with helping people with public speaking?
Sure. For me, I think it all started one horrible day when I realized I was going to have to do a piece of public speaking, and I was terrified of it. This was many, many years ago, and I had just been given the possibility to stand for elections in what was at that moment in time my dream job. And I had avoided public speaking religiously until that point. But suddenly I had the moment where I could decide, do I want to say goodbye to my dream job, or do I want to say goodbye to my fear of public speaking?
Wow.
And I remember vividly standing outside a room, knowing that there's about 200 people in that room waiting for me to come in and try to convince them that I was the right person for the job. Wow. I also remember thinking, oh my God, I've got 5 minutes only to convince them that I'm that right person, and the pressure of time was really weighing on me. And I also remember very much focusing on a friend of mine who'd gone through the same process the previous year, who had completely blanked out. He'd got to the front of the room, he'd introduced himself, and then he froze and forgot everything he was going to say.
Oh.
I was thinking, oh my God, I can't do this. This is terrifying. And, actually getting into that room and having that funny out-of-body experience of going to the front of the stage and then basically getting my words out just about. And that was a moment that really changed my life. Not because suddenly I realized I was a brilliant speaker and a standing ovation, and it wasn't a Hollywood-style fireworks moment. Quite the opposite. It was pretty average. I was all right. But I got through my fear, and in doing that became fascinated with this world of public speaking. So if we then zoom forward 5, 6, 7, 8 years, I forget the exact numbers, I went through an investigation into what does it take to really master this? If I want to be a good public speaker, what does that take? And I started looking at speakers who were impressive, and even speakers who were not just impressive, but who moved me, who inspired me. And I noticed that there was a bit of a difference between the two. There's a bit of a difference between the sort of speaker who just about manages to be proficient and who maybe has impressive, slightly glossy body language and says the right things, versus the speakers who I remember, who inspire me to do something differently. And those second types of speakers were what really inspired me to start Ginger and also to write the book.
So what came first, the book or your business, or did the book come out of your business?
It sort of came a little bit hand in hand, like most of these wonderful synergies that we get in life. I was training public speaking, but on quite a, let's say, a more mechanical basis. It hadn't gone that deep, and I didn't think that I was going to do it long term. And I was approached by a publishing company who had this book commissioned, but their authors, who one of them was an opera singer and another, I think, an actor, decided that they didn't really want to write it, and probably because they were an opera singer and an actor, they didn't feel like it was the thing. So I was given both a marvelous gift and a bit of a challenge. They said, look, we're a major UK publisher. Would you be interested in talking to us about a book? Oh, and by the way, you've got 3 months to write it. So I said, go on then, let's get on with this. When do you get an opportunity like that, landing in your plate with not very much effort? And so I put my head down for those 3 months and solidly wrote. And incidentally, I've just now finished the first draft for the second edition of that book. And I think it's advanced quite a lot since that was 4 or 5 years ago now when I wrote that book. And so in one sense, it was already a consolidation of what I had been teaching. But in another sense, it was the springboard for the work that I do now teach. I developed there the 6 qualities of an inspiring speaker, rather than going into a whole series of rules about how a speaker should behave. I was looking to take it a step deeper and to understand that to be a great public speaker, it kind of comes from within. So that approach started in the book and now has matured, let's say, into a full process that I take my speakers through that's really exciting and powerful.
Excellent. And what was the process for you of working with a traditional publisher? Did you enjoy that? Did they give you the guidance that you wanted, or would you have preferred to kind of do it all on your own?
It was a little bit low touch in the sense that publishers have a lot of books that they try to get through. And I was surprised at how hands off they were. I think what I realized was that they're interested in people who can already write, and they're not really interested, unless you're sort of, I don't know, Russell Brand or someone with a huge public profile, that they don't want to spend that much time editing your book.
Yeah.
So it was my experience was that it was like, okay, what's the best I can give? And then they would do a few tweaks and editorial, grammatical bits and pieces. It wasn't so much that I had a lot of mentorship through that pathway. That in a way suited me because I liked to have creative control. But I think if I had been a less confident writer, I might have gone down the route of finding a book coach or something similar. This route really worked for me, and I really appreciated having the credibility of a major publisher behind me.
Yeah, that's excellent. So how do you think it was, or why do you think it was that they approached you? Had you been writing online about public speaking, or what made them realize that you were not only an expert in this field of public speaking, but also that you could write a coherent book without too much editing needed?
Yeah, I think I was really lucky. I had posted a very short ebook summarizing my ideas on public speaking, and I'd put it a few places, including LinkedIn. And I think this is the one time when LinkedIn has actually come through for me. An agent who is now my literary agent found that. She was asked by Pearson to find us an author. Who do you know in your network? And she just happened upon me and my thoughts. Then we had a little bit of an interview process to see really, did I want to do this and could I? But basically she said that what a publisher needs is to, one, understand that the person can write, which my ebook proved to them. And then two, ideally that you've got some form of a network, because publishing houses are surprisingly poor at selling books.
Yeah.
Which is they have brilliant distribution and they have a great brand name, but they're not always the best at, innovative methods of selling, like selling from stage.
Yeah. I've heard that from all of the traditionally published writers that I've worked with. They've all been very disappointed with the marketing from their publishing house. It seems to be kind of the theme.
Yeah, we got some support from a PR, and that was about it really, But that said, I still feel that the publishing route was incredibly important for my profile. And, the people that got involved with the book as a result of it being an officially published book were of higher caliber. A number of them even asked me, look, is this a self-published or a traditionally published book? And that meant something. And I know that now that has enabled me to build a business on a solid foundation, one that people find impressive, and one that means that I can charge a higher rate. And so, I'm really very grateful to Pearson for that opportunity. That's been life-changing, I'd say.
And they got you to write a book in 3 months.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I don't think I would have managed it on my own in that time because of the lack of pressure.
That's really, really good. When those opportunities come by and really force us to kind of step into the things that we want to do and need to do and get them done in a timely manner.
So true.
So, Sarah, how do you work with people today? I know you've got a number of courses and things that you offer. How do people usually approach you to learn more about public speaking?
When they first come, if they come in person, it's normally to our you could say beginner's course or introductory course, the foundations of excellent public speaking. And we run these in London, and it started to expand a bit internationally as companies take us a bit in-house. But typically we see people, my co-trainer and I will be waiting in the room, and we'll see a whole load of very scared people come in. And there's always this sort of silent atmosphere, like the first day of school. And they sit down, and we have to remind them, look, you can speak to each other, you can introduce yourselves to each other.
No one will be judging you on your normal conversation.
No, exactly. We have video cameras out and so on. And what we try to create is a sense of nurture and safety, and also a strong stretch for the speakers. So I've been to Toastmasters clubs in the past, and this is not to pick on Toastmasters, because I think that they have a brilliant resource for people around the world. But there are, of course, limitations, as there are with everything. And what I find about that style of public speaking training, and I think it's something about training in general, is that it can focus very much on the negatives, on the critique, on what you need to improve. And you might say that this is quite a sort of masculine approach to training, of here are all the things you're doing wrong, and maybe we'll toss in a couple of things you're doing right for sort of appeasement. And what we try to do is something quite different. On the one hand, we're focusing on qualities of our speakers rather than behaviors, meaning the inner sense of power that you have naturally as a human being, rather than changing the outer behaviors that give you the appearance of being confident or interesting. Mm-hmm. That's a thread that runs all the way through our work. And two, that if you're going to be able to access those qualities, so your power, your humor, your compelling story, your personality, if you're going to access those things, you need to feel relaxed, you need to feel safe. And this is a simple physiological response in life. When we are under threat, our bodies are more likely to go into fight or flight. That's just biological. When we are safe, our bodies switch to the neocortex, the part of our brain that controls our creative functioning. So we really try to get people into that neocortex space where they are at home and building their confidence from a place of, look, here are all the things that I'm already good at. How do I then stretch further into my power? Rather than, cutting this bit off because I can't do it like this, and you've said too many arms, and you've moved your hands in the wrong way, or you've said the wrong thing now, you've stepped forward when you should step backwards. And stuff.
Great. And you also have something called Speak Like a TED Talker. How is that different from, I don't know what to call it, normal public speaking for business?
TED Talks, yeah. In case someone doesn't know what a TED Talk is, then look at TED.com. They are an incredibly powerful format of short talks, and all sorts of experts and storytellers collect on this platform to give very powerful short talks. So TED Talks, I think, a symbol of what I see to be really great, inspiring public speaking, because the speakers aren't afraid to be human. Mm-hmm. They're not trying to be impressive. They're just telling their story, putting it across in a way that is kind of humble and sharing. And crucially, for a TED Talk, you're encouraged to pick one idea worth spreading or worth sharing. And this is, I think, a revolutionary concept, but totally obvious in public speaking, that if you just have one idea, then your audience are that much more likely to remember it. So if you look at great TED speakers like Ken Robinson, who's got the most popular talk of all time, or so far, or Simon Sinek, who is the chap who wrote Start With Why. Both of them in their TED Talks, and probably all of the TED Talks that are the most popular, really focus on hammer into one idea. With Simon Sinek, it is that great leaders start with why, and he tells various different stories about the Wright brothers and Apple and Martin Luther King, I think, also. And Ken Robinson hammers away at the point that schools are killing creativity, and that here are just little stories of how kids are naturally creative and beautiful. And there's just something so strong about having the confidence to do that with our own public speaking, that we don't need to throw everything we know at that 10 minutes or that 20 minutes that we've got to speak. That if we just select the thing that is most important, our audience will remember it, and then that's when they start to pass it on.
Yeah, and I think so many people get really excited and inspired by these TED Talks because they're brief, they've got a really inspiring idea, and the speakers are both kind of natural, easy to relate to, but just really focused and inspiring.
Yes, yeah.
It's like the talks are very shareable as well on social media.
Very much so. Although if I had been reviewing that concept a few years ago and thinking, the way that YouTube was going, of showing your cat singing or whatever it is, you wouldn't imagine that talks of that long actually have power, because we were being told in the business world, keep it short, 3 minutes is probably enough, 7 minutes, maybe, but you have to be really good. Who'd have thought that a series of lectures these days would be viewed by millions, probably now billions of people across the world? It's really remarkable, and I think it's something to do with the quality of their insight and also the idealism that goes behind the TED platform. It's not just let's show our egos and benefit from it by doing a sales pitch at the end. It's something much more deep and humble and generous.
Yeah. And it's very much focusing on giving this important kind of nugget of information or this concept to the listeners, or the viewers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you've also got something called the Inspiring Speakers Program. What is that about?
This is a great one. It's a 6-month life-changing journey, really. That's how people have described it. It follows the book. So over 6 months, a group of people go through a process where they learn and bring out the 6 qualities of an inspiring speaker. So we start off with, for example, authenticity. How do I be myself when I'm standing on stage? What do I stand for as a speaker? And we go all the way through learning about how to be fresh and memorable, how to empathetically connect with your audience, how to be fearless as a speaker, and those sorts of things. And what's really special about this program is that it's not just simple training in the training room and then you forget about it and disappear off into life. We actually take it into the real world. We go to, one of my favorite things actually is we go to Speaker's Corner, which is at near Marble Arch or Hyde Park Corner in London, and this is seen as, in a sense, the home of freedom of speech. Anyone can say anything there. Ooh. And they often do. So we get up on a stepladder, literally a stepladder, and the general public crowd around, tourists, nutters, all sorts of weird and wonderful people. And each of our speakers have as long as they like to rant about a topic that they care about. So we've had people having a good rant about technology and how it's pulling us away from our human interactions, about the school system in the UK, about any number of different things, from nutrition to plastic surgery, whatever you like. And the brilliant thing is that you get immediate and sometimes quite awkward feedback from hecklers. People will tell you if they disagree. And what's great about that moment is when we're collecting together, there's a cafe just nearby, and when we meet, before we go off to speak, you can see the terror in the eyes of the speakers, and you can see the sort of pleading. They try to barter with me. They try to say, do we really have to go? And we're not really going to do this, are we? And then I say, yep, come on, off we go. And in between them getting up and speaking and then finishing, something incredible happens. And they go from, let's say, scared kittens on their way to speak to looking like some kind of scene out of Top Gun as they walk away from Speaker's Corner. It's amazing how much confidence they get. And that's just one of the things we do. We finished the Inspiring Speakers program at a gala finale. So they've been working towards this for 6 months, and they are invited to put together a 10-minute short and inspiring speech. And many of these are now online on our website. And they're really good. They do a great job. They are invited to speak in front of about 100 friends, family, network, people who are interested in public speaking. And inspire us, please, is the request. So, and they're videoed and they have judging and so on. But the really important thing that happens for them that evening is almost a line crossing, that they know all of the theory of brilliant public speaking, and now they are physically present in a room, inspiring an audience, giving it their best shot. So from there, I've seen speakers leap onwards to do TED Talks, to set up businesses around their public speaking, to increase their media profile. or even in-house. A lot of people come when they're at that stage in their organization where they want to step up a level, and people come back to me 6 months or a year later to say, I'm now being asked to speak constantly, and I quite like it. So it's a hugely rewarding process for all of them and me.
I love that. I love how you take them completely out of their comfort zones to Speaker's Corner, because when you're speaking at, the gala event, or when you're speaking amongst your group, or when you go to speak at a networking event for your business or something like that, it's like you've got a room full of, generally speaking, your target audience, your target clients. But when you get on a corner in the middle of a major city, whether it's London or elsewhere, you've got random people there. So a lot of the people are not going to be people that are, receptive to your message.
Yes. And often are completely the opposite.
Exactly.
But nonetheless, actually, people are still people. And I think what I've learned through the Speaker's Corner process is that whoever is there, generally they wish the speaker well.
Oh, that's good.
And we put a lot of fear in the direction of being judged by the audience. But actually, the audience are really just interested in getting something from you. They're thinking a lot less about you than we imagine.
Yeah, and more about what you're saying and what they can get from it.
Exactly. We're all very egocentric. We're watching a speaker, but we're asking, what's that to me? What's it got to do with me? We're not picking away at that person's, I don't know, what colour is their lipstick, or are they wearing a very nice shoes? Or, we don't actually care. It's something we often worry about a lot. I find myself doing it still, but it's not as relevant as we think.
Exactly. As long as it doesn't stand out and distract from your message, I think it's, anything's pretty much okay.
That's right. Yeah.
So, Sarah, what are your top tips on how to be brilliant at public speaking? So if our listeners today, maybe, they've already kind of ventured into the world of speaking for business or curious to get started, what are your top tips for them to kind of start thinking about it from a different perspective and get started at being, inspiring and good at it?
Yeah, I would give a few of my qualities of an inspiring speaker as focus words, really.
Great.
The one that I've just mentioned, authenticity, I think is the most important thing in public speaking. Whatever else you're doing, if you are yourself, your audience will resonate more with you and with your message. And I think especially for women in business, we have a wonderful opportunity to express the richness of our personalities and share in a way that others resonate with. So don't feel like you need to put a mask on. That will make you more nervous. Instead, seek to embrace your personal qualities, the things that come out. Then I would say authenticity is not just about, oh my God, I feel terrified and this is awful and I feel really weak and I'm going to show authentically that I'm a bit crap. It's not about that. It's also about one of the other qualities, which is fearlessness, that we are at our best as speakers when we're stepping beyond our comfort zone. So don't worry about nerves. Nerves, in fact, are more of a sign that you're doing something important than they are of a warning sign. We tend to worry too much about nerves and people seeing that we're nervous. So what if they see that you're nervous? So what if you blush a little bit? Let that become a sign that you're doing something important rather than something that puts you off trying as a speaker. And remember, I think that nerves in the body are exactly the same as excitement. It's simply adrenaline affecting the body, normally the stomach area. And it's actually the brain that labels that feeling. So it labels it fear or it labels it excitement. But in the body, it's the same feeling. So we have some degree of choice as to whether we choose that feeling to be nervous terror or actually, cool, this is a sign that I'm doing something important.
That's a really good perspective, because I think a lot of people just get so caught up in the fear and the nerves and that they're focusing on it, and so it just gets worse and it kind of can spiral out of control. But it is, as you say, exactly the same as being excited about something. Yeah,
absolutely. So that's authenticity, fearlessness, and I think the third word I would leave you with is freshness. So the power to be memorable, the willingness to stick out. And again, this comes from the physiology, because in the wild, as it were, evolutionarily speaking, anyone who sticks out is more of a threat, more of a target for predators. So we have, again, a physiological impulse to try to hide ourselves when we're under pressure, when we're under the pressure of a load of eyes looking at us and we feel like we're under attack. Those speakers who, I suppose, fall foul to this tendency are the ones that we don't remember because they don't stick out. So if we have PowerPoint and lots of bullet points and the usual presentation format that everyone has seen hundreds and hundreds of times in their work life, then we're simply not going to be memorable. It is an act of fearlessness to be fresh and to be memorable. So I would encourage, if you want to let your business be benefited by your public speaking, to really do something different, to stick in the minds of your audience through what you say, the words you use, the stories you tell, the props you use, or the visual aids, doing something brave that challenges you and that will stick in the minds of your audience.
Yeah, I think as you were saying that, of course, I was just recently remembering a talk that I saw you give that was very, very memorable.
Thank you.
And also remember something that I saw once Joanna Martin do that also involved a lot of memorable props and kind of storytelling and kind of pulling everything that she was saying together in a visual. And so I think that's so powerful when speakers can do that because, as you've said, it's fresh, it's memorable, it's out there, it's unique, but it also gives you a visual in the same way that PowerPoints give you a visual that helps things stick into your head.
Yeah, some kind of hook. And I think there it's really important to make sure that the thing that people remember is the right one. That It's not just, here's my opening joke or here's some crazy prop and now here's my really boring actual message. Often you see speakers starting with a joke and then it all goes downhill from there. And I think that's what we're trying to avoid, that the prop or the thing that the story that you're telling that's really memorable in some way directly reinforces your message.
Yeah, it has to be an integrated part of your message, not just this random thing that you pull out of the hat.
Exactly. And there's so much possibility from there to profile yourself as an expert. If you can master public speaking, if you can enjoy it, if you can seek more of it, then your business only benefits. Because you're the person that people have seen physically speaking is the one that will stick in their mind when they think, where's my next, I don't know, specialist on IT or my next coach or whatever it is, where are they coming from? Well, the first person who comes to mind is the brilliant public speaker.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much for those 3 tips. I think that's really, really important. You've also given us some very clear examples of how to integrate these things into our speaking.
Cool.
Yeah, so you've already talked a little bit about how other women in business can benefit from working with you, but you also have a kind of a free e-course gift, don't you, that people can sign up for?
Yeah, it's very silly but very profound. I am a bit of a frustrated artist myself, and I have a series called the Ginger Doodles, which is a little character that I hand draw myself who guides you through some top tips on public speaking. So if you're interested in investigating, on my website gingerpublicspeaking.com, on the very first page is a sign-up form for a 6-week Ginger Doodles e-course, totally for free. And there you'll learn in a very quick email every day for 6 weeks the 6 qualities of an inspiring speaker.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
So you've already told us what your website is. Are you also on social media? Can people connect with you there?
Yep, my Twitter handle, if you call it that, is at Ginger Nibbles. And we're on Facebook at Facebook, I think it's /go Ginger or go-ginger. I can't think of it. But if you look for Ginger Training and Coaching on Facebook, you'll find it there as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure, Holly.
It's a pleasure to speak with you. And thank you for listening. And remember to visit readytobloom.com/84 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Ready to Bloom podcast with your host, Holly Wharton. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to head over to iTunes and leave us a quick review of this podcast. Thank you.